Hi, I'm Brandon Poe, founder of Poe Group Advisors and creator of the Accounting Practice Academy. You are listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast, where we talk about stuff in the accounting world. If you're looking to buy or sell a practice, we are the premier accounting practice intermediary firm in the industry. Check us out at pogroupadvisors.com. If you're a firm owner looking to build a more profitable practice while actually reducing owner hours, sign up for our practice management workshop, which only runs a few times per year. Learn more at accountingpracticeacademy.com. Welcome to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. I have a guest that's a little different for our show. He's in a tech company, which we'll talk about here in a second. Matt Kanas, who is the managing director of the Americas at Ignition. You've been in that position for 4 years. He has a proven track record of driving growth and innovation. He's earned a distinguished reputation within the technology industry, has over 18 years of experience in the accounting software industry, including working for leading companies like Intuit. Outside of professional accomplishments, Matt is a devoted family man who enjoys exploring his hometown, Toronto, and the world with his wife and 2 sons. He has a passion for adventure and likes to snowboard and hike with his family. That's awesome. A little bit about Ignition. Yeah. Go ahead. You were going to say?
No, I was going to say all true, Brand. So thank you very much for that nice intro.
Yeah, and I want to tell people a little bit about Ignition if they're not familiar with it. I think most people probably have heard of Ignition, but it was founded in 2013. It's the leading revenue generation platform for accounting and professional services firms. It automates and optimizes proposals, billing, payments, and workflows in a single platform that fits into existing tech stacks. Is that?
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell, Brandon. It's when I think about Ignition, if I could summarize it, especially in sort of today's milieu, I really see it as that we used to say proposals to payments, but the way I see it, especially the way we're looking at CAS in the industry right now, or any of the accounting services or the advisory services, it's really about packaging up your services really well, being able to present those services in a 3-option platform to your clients, whether they're new or existing, putting a price against that and the billing schedule. So, hey, look, if you're still doing hourly, that's great. We can manage that. I know some folks have often thought that Ignition is all about fixed fees and moving to value, but we've got 71 ways that you can bill your clients, and then automating that payment so you don't have to worry about it, with automatic reminders to your clients, so that you're really getting that end-to-end from engagement to payment, but in a really comprehensive way that really displays and puts at the forefront your value. So when I think about Ignition, especially now, that's how I see it. It's driving efficiency, but it's also enabling you to get that profitability. And I think there's really an unknown problem within the accounting space today, and that really is like, where am I leaking my revenue? Like where is that?
Oh yeah.
How can I get that profitability? And we can talk about the trends that we're seeing in the industry today and how we can help solve that. But I think it's one of those unknown issues. And then if you don't know that the problem exists, or you're kind of unaware of where that leak is within your funnel, you're not going to be looking for the solution. So that's where I think it comes into play.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, it's I've been seeing a lot of the stuff around it for a while. I feel like it's a rising, it's a company that's probably growing quickly and expanding fast, and that's awesome. How did you just to give people a little bit of information about you, how did you get into the tech space in the accounting world to start with? Like what?
Yeah, it's sort of like I dove in. So I started my career on the marketing side of the house. So I was working for agencies, and I was working for this boutique agency, maybe like my first year into like my career. And one of the clients there was Intuit, and Intuit had just recently acquired QuickTax in Canada, and they were eventually, which they rebrand into TurboTax for Canada. And so I started working on the business there. From there, I moved to another agency, and then from that agency, Intuit poached me. And so I worked a variety of jobs, and my last job there had me in a role as a, sort of a partnership leader in Canada and working on the business development side of the house and working for developers. And so it was there that I really started working closely with those app ecosystem vendors, whether it's Ignition, there's Bill.com, the likes of Square or even Shopify, a great Canadian darling, or Receipt Bank, now Dext. And it was from there that it was only a matter of time when Ignition raised their Series B. I was speaking with who I kept close with, founder Guy Pearson. He said, "Hey, here's an opportunity for you. What do you think?" And I always had sort of in my working with all these vendors, there's a top three. If I ever had the knock on the door to say, "Hey, do you want to come join us?" Ignition was my number one, because I love the people. I love the problem it solves. It's very unique in the problem it solves. And it's founded by, as he would call himself, a recovering accountant. So he knows the space, he knows the challenges. And, it was, as I said, there was a very, very nuanced challenge that he wanted to solve. And that's where Ignition plays.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. It's always interesting to hear how people kind of weave their way into a spot, and, you can't come from the agency side. That's interesting. Um, So, let's talk about change in the accounting industry. You've dubbed 2024 as the year of change management for accountants. Um, can you elaborate on that? Tell us about your thoughts on that this year. Why 2024?
You bet. And it's funny, having been in the industry for so long. We've been talking about change. We've been talking about it, and I'll say it again, CAS, and there's CAS 2.0. That if you read the AI CPA newsletters and so forth. But I really think that 24 is that year of change, because there's so much happening, not only within the profession itself, but also outside, that's really impacting how people are viewing technology and business models and so forth. But when we look at those issues that we found in a survey that we sent to about 100 accounting firms or professionals within our roster, there were three that really stood out. So there was staff shortages, and we know that that's an industry-wide issue. And we know that there's any number of sort of reasons for it, but that's going to require firms to really think through who they hire and why and where to deploy them. So is it always going to be a CPA? Is it going to be a bookkeeper? Or is it going to be someone who is going to have to be able to deploy that tech stack and manage that tech stack and find those efficiencies within the firm? Number two, we always know that there's going to be inefficient in manual processes. And so we saw about 44% of our respondents saying that they're looking for ways to solve that. What's interesting to me, though, is when we look at, if you want to dig deeper into what does that mean that you have inefficient or manual processes and you want to find efficiencies, oftentimes the word workflow shows up or automation shows up. And I would challenge a lot of anyone who says those words. Like, do you know what that really means? Like, do you know what a workflow looks like? Do you know what that automation that you're seeking, what you want that to accomplish? And oftentimes it'll be, I want to get rid of, data entry. And I get that. And that's a huge pain point. But like I said earlier, there are so many other sort of hidden challenges within any firm that you want to go a little bit, you want to ask the whys, right? This is one of my Intuit mantras when I think about, Brad Smith or Scott Cook, when they always sort of forced us to think a little bit more about uncovering the why behind the why. And so I think that when we say workflow and automation, we have to be very deliberate and intentional about what you want to solve, and not just think about it from like that obvious pain point. So something that they need to overcome, but I would challenge that when we want to look for those, try to find efficient ways to solve problems and get rid of manual processes, dig deeper than the obvious.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think we all hear, which is our third point here in the year of change, is there's just too much client work. So it's the busy work. And, coming off of tax season, we know there's a ton of busy work. And we also know there's probably a ton of clients within the roster of any firm that you don't like working with. So again, one of the things that, I like to talk about, and uh, looking at those particular, um, you know, changes that are hard to make, it does
Mm-hmm.
come back to packaging. It does come back to pricing. And also, like, pricing means increasing your prices. Like we see it across the board. I've got a Disney Plus subscription, I've got a Netflix subscription, I've got a Prime subscription. Each and every year, if not more than that, we're seeing those prices increase. And we know that with inflation and interest rates, those prices are, going to be increasing. The grocery store is a nightmare these days. So we can't be afraid to increase prices within this profession. And when you do that, often what you'll find is those clients you don't like working with, that probably you signed up early on in your career or in the firm's path, or you said, I need to fill a gap right now. They're going to go hunting for someone who's cheaper, and then you start working with those great clients that add tremendous value to you and your staff. So now you're working with great people, and your staff probably love it. So you're probably going to hold on to great staff, and you're pricing effectively so that that revenue is coming in, and the staff's going to like that because there's lots of downstream effects that has in terms of work-life balance, et cetera. So those are the three things. So staff shortages through 51%, inefficient and manual processes, 44% of our respondents, and then too much client work. That's 35% of our respondents. So all of those, when you think about it, are going to have to force folks to think about how they manage change through the year, and prepare themselves for next year and the year ends and tax season, tax year 24 and early 25, to think about what those processes are, who's going to be at the helm within the staff to manage it, and then how do we find those great clients that value your work and are willing to pay the price for that great work.
Yeah. Yeah. I think pricing, and we have a group workshop that's a virtual workshop called Accounting Practice Academy. And one of the modules in there is pricing. And a lot of our members have gone up pretty substantially on pricing. And I can say almost 100% of those people, I can't think of a one that regretted that decision or that lost more clients than they anticipated, or excuse me, fewer clients than they anticipated. So they, or did I get that backwards? Anyway, they lose less. They
Less
go,
than they thought they were going to be like.
less. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's they're always surprised that how easy it was, basically. And if they'd known it was easier, they probably would have done it years ago. And
It's,
so
it's the truth.
I'm with you on that. I think pricing, it's literally probably the biggest lever you can pull to make improvements in your firm for most firms.
100%. And, I think about, I'm sure Dawn Brolin. She's a good friend of ours. And one of the things that I think is attached to that pricing conversation is just the fear factor. It's like you've alluded to, right? They feel that they're going to lose their clients, and there goes the firm. And so there is a huge leap of faith that you have to take in order for that to happen. And she started using Ignition a couple of years ago, and what she said was, what I loved about it was I was able to get those new engagements out or re-engagements at year end in bulk. So you can send like however many you want, more or less, and then just press a button, and then come what may. I no longer have to have the conversation. I don't have to do the one-off emails. I just do it, and I'll see what comes back. And ultimately, like you said, they don't leave. And the ones that do leave are probably the ones who are hoping would have left, or the ones who are having, fear of having an awkward conversation about how much you don't like servicing them, but in a nice way. And so, these are the things that pricing can help manage.
And we've had people really try to price people out of their practice and they don't leave. And so I tell people, like, if you really want someone to leave, you probably have to terminate that relationship in a different way. You're not just you're not always going to be successful by just raising the prices on them.
It's true. It's true.
So
Hi, this is Liesl from Poe Group Advisors. If you're enjoying this episode and you're thinking about selling your firm, check out our recent episode with Clay Blakely, where we dive into his experience on selling his accounting practice and the do's and don'ts of how to smoothly transition. Or if you're in the market to acquire a firm and need some pointers, check out our episode with recent buyer Ravi Patel. Thanks for listening, and now back to the episode.
let's talk a little bit about trends. You said scope creep. You mean like getting into different segments where you don't normally, you're not sticking to your knitting kind of thing, or are you talking about within an engagement, the scope of it yeah, okay.
Yeah, that. And so, yeah, what we're saying is with scope creep now more than ever, you're going to have to monetize that scope creep. And what I mean by that is it's often scope creep is often viewed as a negative thing. You say, okay, well, we're going to have to, we're going outside of what we originally proposed or signed off on. And now, how do I make the money on that? So there are ways to do that. But what it is, and if you look at it from the flip side of that coin, is it's really a positive signal. Like, oh,
They want
they're asking
more
me to do
work.
more. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I'm doing something right here. They value what I'm doing. And so that's really what we're sort of pointing out as is that this scope creep. Let's not look at it as something that is negative, which it can be, because in our survey we found that U.S. accounting and bookkeeping firms are leaving over $76,000 per year on average on the table. So they're obviously working the hours but not collecting on that money. So in that also has downstream effects, right? Overworking and undervaluing time is something that many firms are dealing with year over year. And 90%, as we found, of accounting professionals have experienced clients not billing for out of scope work. So that means you're chasing for that money, or it just falls off the table. And I come from a small business family. My father was a small business owner. I remember going out on Saturday mornings and knocking on clients' doors, trying to collect on the money that was in arrears. So I know the pain and the time that it can take for someone to collect on that, which is horrible. And so what again this tells me, and I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna sing it from the hilltops, is that it tells me that firms are really unable to sort of articulate where they have that revenue leak, and if they do, they don't know how to solve it. And so of course, Ignition can help with that, but I think it's you have to be very proactive about it, and it can't be the cost of doing business as the excuse, because there are ways to solve for that, and it's a mindset. And again, when we think about 24 as the year of change, it's really embracing what do I need to do to take that signal that I'm doing great work, and my clients value me and know that I'm doing, the God's work for them and getting them the money they need and managing their business. What do I need to do now to make sure that my business is safe? And how do I grow my profitability based on the work that I'm putting out there and my staff are putting out there? Because we know that, accounting firms, people know how money works, and they know that if they're working much longer time, and not collecting on that, there's a problem. And so morale in the firm can lower. You might see the revolving door because they feel it's a mismanaged business and they're not reaping the benefits of the hours they're putting in.
Yeah, and I think you said the word mindset in that, and I feel like that is really at the root of this. Is sometimes accountants just they care about their clients so much, but they don't care about their own business as much. And I see that it's like this strange thing where you care so much, you care too much almost. It's if you want some confidence, I just got a bill from my lawyer actually opened it this morning, and they don't have a problem billing.
Law firms typically do not.
They
No.
don't have a problem at all. Accountants should be more like that. Um, so talent, that was one of the other things that you said, and we're definitely seeing it in our business. Yeah, everyone's having this problem. And you talked about it a little bit earlier. If you have good clients and you have good work-life balance, retaining staff is a little easier. Um, so what are some of the non-traditional ways you're seeing people kind of work on that problem?
Yeah, you know what? It does come back to, it's funny when we say non-traditional, right? It's sort of going back to what you're saying around the billing. Like, what are those non-traditional ways? I think people are taking stock about uh, how they're frankly pricing and packaging, and that is the overwhelming solve for getting better retention and keeping that top talent and making people feel valued. Because when you think about it, when you're pulling in the money that you are supposed to be pulling in, you've no longer have an AR issue or the scope creep issue, and you've raised your prices. Then you're able to say to your staff, no longer do you need to work the 60, 70, 80-hour work week through tax season, because we've got this under control. Now, it's a bit idyllic, but speaking to some of our, say, our customers, like a Don Brolin, who I mentioned earlier, and others, they're really advocating for that the 6-hour workday, because you've got your processes in order, you're getting paid, the
Mm-hmm.
the staff are happy. And when you have that, you're able to give those bonuses at year end. You're able to say, let's go on a team outing. Like, I know a firm that took their team to Bali, and from Canada. And so those are the sorts of things that you can start looking at to retain that talent and make sure that you're giving them an opportunity to also rise within the firm, so they're stuck in the drudgery of the day-to-day minutia. You now have a tech stack, for instance, which is another non-traditional way. You've found those great workflows that, you've got a new client come in, you've sent off a workflow that, you've got your intake, you've got some
Mm-hmm.
marketing that's going to them, you've got a way for them to, you can start collecting on any of the documents you need for them. And so those are the sorts of things that can really help. Now, the other thing I mentioned was looking at not just attracting the traditional talent, which is, an accounting professional of a sort. Looking beyond that, maybe it's a marketing guru that you want to bring in. Maybe it's someone who knows the tech stacks and is able to deploy those. So you've got that IT specialist now. Maybe you start looking at, a people and culture representative that's really looking over how the firm works. Now, clearly, these are things that are much longer view. And, as you scale your firm, if that's something you want to do in terms of its size and the employees you bring in, that's sort of the next step. But certainly those are the things that we're seeing from our customers in terms of how they're rethinking and retooling and looking at the next 12 months, 3 years, 5 years on how they want to grow. And when I say grow, I don't necessarily mean getting new clients in. When we talk to our customers, often what they mean by grow is growing their current client base. They don't want to market. They don't want to find those new folks because they've got a great roster. Now, how do you expand on that? And that's a lot of its packaging, offering new services, taking stack of those services that are making you money across your firm, and then applying that to re-engagements with increased prices, and life becomes a little bit better. And then we've always heard about, finding the niche and working within that niche so that you can have that formula to grow without a whole lot of guessing work happening.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of in a way, it's a little bit of an exciting time to own a firm.
I think so.
I hear a lot of people that their calendars are over scheduled and don't have the time, but
Hmm.
there's opportunity in that, right? That's means that you're in high demand. That means people want your services. And you're kind of in the catbird seat with pricing, and you get to choose who you want to work with. And like it's, if you can flip it and see that there's tremendous opportunity in all of this.
100%, Brandon. When you think about it too, look, those clients don't want to go into your office, so they could be on the other side of the country and see that you're doing great work, or the word of mouth from their friend who moved to, you're in New York and they're in California, or you're in South Carolina and they're, in New Mexico, and they say, oh, okay, well, can you help me out? Here's what I'm looking for. Then that's it. You don't need to have that,
Yeah.
regional or proximate relationship. You now can service the entire country and beyond. And the internet is, I mean, I feel like an old guy here saying internet, but that's the marketplace, right? And so the Google search, if you want to optimize for that, for a particular service or a particular niche, sky's the limit. And then, like you say, you can pick and choose, and you can price however you want. And if you can create a flow. We've got a thing called Web Connector in Ignition, where you can present the 3 options on your website. They can click on the one they like, do the intake form, and then you can get a proposal out the door to that prospect in minutes. And so this is the world in which when I say like workflows and automation, like those are the sorts of things that firms can bring to their tech stack, make their lives significantly more improved.
Right. Yeah. And if you can accelerate that process, and you always need a new source of clients coming in. I think it's great to have a lot of leads, and then you can filter them, and then you can price them well. Like, the more leads you have, the more pricing confidence you have. And so, yeah, I can see how turning around a proposal quickly and efficiently would allow you to process more leads, and then you could do so at a higher price.
That's it. And so you keep flexing that muscle, and you learn and you learn and you learn, so that it doesn't become that fear factor, and you learn what works and what doesn't, and then the confidence and that clarity happens, and away you go.
Hey y'all, Ian chiming in here again to let you know that we've announced the start dates for the 2024 sessions of Accounting Practice Academy. We're running it on May 24th, July 26th, and September 27th. APA, if you don't know, is an 8-week virtual workshop and an incredible resource for firm owners who need to get their hours down without affecting their bottom line. Most owners who take the workshop actually see a significant increase in profitability while reducing their hours. I know it sounds crazy, but dig into the workshop details on our website and check out some of our testimonials. So if you want to learn more, visit accountingpracticeacademy.com. Thanks for listening, and now back to the episode.
Do you have any kind of sense about, like, okay, if I'm pricing things well, I should lose X amount of proposals? Maybe I should get 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 2. Do you have a sense of, like, you shouldn't get every proposal that you put out there?
No.
If you do, you're leaving a lot of money on the table.
Yeah. And so we have a couple customers who have benchmarked this. And so what they say is it's near like a 30% rejection is what like your conversion rate should be around that 30%, I should say. So that's where that's sort of the sweet spot, because now you're pulling in, exactly like you said, those clients that you like, that are seeing, okay, I will pay that price. And so you've kind of hit your mark there. So it's not like it's just pure marketing, right? Like, where in your funnel, what those conversion rates are. And so how you've optimized. And so and then from there, you can test and nuance each of these things to see how far you can stretch that and where you can go. And it's a really intelligent way of thinking about that lead management.
Yeah. And it's a continual process, right? Because next year the prices need to go up too.
I like the way you're thinking. Like, when we benchmarked this last year, and I think the number that we saw is Ignition customers on average are increasing prices by 10% year over year.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's great. Do you think AI, like, what do you think? You got some thoughts on how that's going to impact our industry?
I'm probably going to be I'm not going to be too original. I think it's sort of we're in, we've heard it before. We're in that new sort of revolution right now, right? Like manufacturing changed the way we worked. Then the car came around and got rid of the horse and buggy, radio, then TV, the internet, and now we've got AI. It's here to stay. We've already seen the proliferation of it within this last like year and a half. I mean, you can't go anywhere now without someone talking about AI, excuse me, or hearing a vendor talk about how they've implemented AI. And of course, there is the fear of that AI is going to take over your job. Now, that's not going to happen. What AI is going to do, and we go back to what we talked about originally, trying to find workflows and automation and efficiencies. That's where it's going to land you. So whether you're doing those tasks that you don't want to do, like writing the emails to clients, or even writing that script for that client you want to get rid of, but you don't know how, AI will help there. But what it does is it obviously frees up a lot of your time because it can help with the analysis. So if you're doing an audit, there's AI that can help you expedite that and increase your margins on the work that otherwise would have taken someone hours to do or days to do. And then you can present the findings to your client, because there's never going to be a world, at least probably while we're still around, where that human interaction, that human empathy, that trusted advisor's voice is going to be replaced by an accountant bot. That's not going to happen. This is the lifeblood of your business, the lifeblood of your family's health. All of it is the money that's coming into a business, whether you're the accountant or you're the client, and someone's going to want to talk to a human about that and get some snappy answers and know that they're with someone who's not behind a code. They're a human being. So I just find it's something that we have to embrace. And again, it's this year of change. Don't stick your head in a hole and bury it and think it's going to go away. Every conference that you go to, whether it's going to be Engage in a few weeks, or it's going to be a XeroCon or a QBC or scaling or an IRS show, AI is going to be everywhere. Everyone is adopting it. It's now, how do you implement it within your firm? And listen, I use it on a daily basis just to help me. I get newsletters. I get PDFs of reports. I put them into like a ChatGPT, and I say, like, summarize this for me. And what would have taken me a half hour to read now takes me 3 minutes. And if I want to go deeper, I go deeper. So I think it's going to be the grand enabler. And going back to the word we used earlier around mindset, it's just that right mindset to say, okay, let's get curious here. Tax season's over. I've got a summer of learning. Take a course, understand what it is, and then how you can deploy it within your firm. It's not going anywhere.
Right. So we're kind of at the wrap up stage here, and I always like to get a funny story. This is kind of a newer question on my newer podcast. I've gotten some really cool stories. Do you have a funny career story you can share?
Yeah, excuse me. I'll share how I met Guy Pearson, the co-founder of Ignition, and Tom Maxwell, who is our head of customer experience, and both dear friends. It was Scaling New Heights. I think it was 2015. It was in New Orleans. I was walking the show floor, sort of newer to the ecosystem. I think it was my first scaling. So New Orleans, I won't tell the other stories on the other side of that trip, but it was, I saw these guys roughly my age, walking around in astronaut outfits. I was like, well, I'm gonna have to go meet these guys. But they were walking around and they were carrying this giant screen, like off the street and down the escalators. And I was like, okay, well, what's going on here? So I saw them setting things up, and I went up to them and said, hey guys, I'm Matt. I'm from Intuit, part of the ecosystem crew here. How are you? And they're like, oh, well, we're good. And they were setting the screen up. So I asked them later that night when we were having a beer. I said, guys, what was up with that screen? They said, well, we came here and we didn't have a big screen. We just had our laptops, and so we essentially took the screen off of our Airbnb's wall, and we hauled it over. They said, but on our way here, we stopped into a cafe for a coffee, and we were talking with the cafe's owner, and she was asking us what we were doing with this screen and where we were going. And so we told her, and then she said, oh, well, where are you staying? And she said, well, we're staying at this Airbnb. She's like, that's my Airbnb. That's my TV. And so they were like, So I think that it was just that moment in time where like everything came together. Then I meet these guys 5 minutes after that conversation in astronaut outfits, carrying this large TV. It's like, oh, and then from there, the night progressed. But it was, it was one of those moments where you go, okay, you know what, I like these guys. I can get along with them. And of course, they have their thick Aussie accent, so it made the story a whole lot better.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. That's so funny. Small world. Show up at the cafe. Yeah. So they were probably a little disheveled from all of that, I would imagine.
Absolutely. They're skulking around. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good. It was good.
Well, Matt, this has been a great conversation. I'm surprised at like how much alignment when I talk to people who are in business of practice management. You're helping people manage their firms better. We're kind of all coming to the same general conclusions, but we have a little different angle at how to help. And I found this to be a very valuable conversation. So hopefully our listeners will like it. What's the best way for people to connect with you online?
Yeah, you know what? I'm a LinkedIn junkie. So if you can find my name. So it's Matt Kanas, Kanas. And yeah,
I pronounced it wrong. I'm so sorry. Don't
worry about it, Brandon. It is totally fine. It's the brain, right? We see that word, and we're not looking for we see the K and an S and a couple A's. Don't worry about it. So Matt Kanas or Matthew Kanas on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. You can also find me at Twitter at MC Kanas. So connect there. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any follow-ups. But this has been a great conversation, Brandon. So thank you very much for having me today.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. If you like what you heard today, please follow us so that you can get updates when new episodes are released, and share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can also follow Poe Group Advisors on social media. Please visit our website for more information at pogroupadvisors.com.